It's all fun when you come and visit Coeur d'Alene and then you realize that you want to move here. But most people don't understand that living in a resort town is different than vacationing in a resort town. So we're going to break down for you what it's really like, in our opinion, in our somewhat unfiltered opinion, what it's really like living in a mountain resort town. So stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. It's your favorite local North Idaho real estate agents.
I'm Sammy Randazzo.
And I'm Lindsay Allen. And we are here to inform you about what it's really like to live in a resort town. But before we get into it, of course, we've got to ask if you are enjoying this content and you're liking these videos. Make sure to like the video and also subscribe. That way you can stay up to date on all the new things about the North Idaho market and what it's like to live in our community. We talk to people all day, every week, all year long about what it's like to live here in this community. So if you have any questions personally, feel free to put them in the comments or call or text us, and we'll be happy to chit chat with you about what life is like in a mountain resort town. So now that we've got that over with, let's get into it. We were putting this kind of maybe pros and cons list together last week as we were trying to figure out what do we want to inform people about when it comes to living in a resort community. And we decided, let's just go ahead and tell people what we really feel versus kind of the sugar-coated pros and cons. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. So first and foremost, I think we're gonna go into the stuff that we see, enjoy, and also what's kind of normal for living in Coeur d'Alene. So first and foremost, obviously we touch on this all the time, is the scenery around here.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Very beautiful. Very green. This year especially very green.
We've had so much rain.
Yes.
Which is hopefully going to keep the fires away.
Yes.
For the summer. But yeah, very green, very lush, piney, lots of pine trees.
Yes. Lots of blue water. Everything's just very, very scenic and looks like a postcard.
Yeah.
Whether it's spring, summer, fall, winter, I feel like anywhere in and around the lake, and many like ski resorts or mountain lakes, hikes, all the outdoor stuff, like postcard calendar worthy. So incredibly scenic, obviously. The other thing we came up with that we kind of enjoy about living in Coeur d'Alene as a mountain resort is the difference in the seasons.
Yeah.
So we do get a distinct summer, fall, winter. Spring can be a little ambiguous.
Spring is dicey, I feel like here.
Yeah.
It's either like freezing and we're like, is this still winter? Or it's like warm quickly. I don't know. Spring is, I think, kind of that weird or like fourth season that is confused most of the time. But we do get it.
Yes.
It's just not as like prevalent as the other three, I feel like.
Yeah. But the other three are, I mean, I hate leaving Coeur d'Alene in the summertime.
I know.
This is why everyone comes here.
Right.
And in the fall, it's beautiful. And if you are acclimated with winter activities like snowmobiling, skiing,
snowboarding, snowshoeing.
There's lots of
cross-country
stuff to do
skiing.
around here.
Yeah, it's like because a lot of the golf courses, they'll kind of transform into like snowshoe trails or cross-country ski trails. So even if you're not like a big adrenaline junkie, downhill skiing, snowmobiling, there's other activities that you can do. And I think that's kind of nice for like our retired community that's here. They're maybe not in the best physical shape anymore to do the more like, I guess, hardcore terrain that is like the downhill skiing that we do have around. So I think that's a big draw for that, I guess, group of people.
Yes, for sure. The other thing that we came up with is the cleanliness. Because it's a resort town, I think there's a big emphasis on, keeping the parks clean, and the streets clean, and the sidewalks clean, because we've got so many visitors and pedestrians out and about during the summertime. So it's just so, and we brought this up in other videos, just how clean everything is around here.
Yeah, well, and you can attest to this as well, like even downtown at the resort. So we both worked for the Coeur d'Alene Resort in some entity or another, and they do an entire like landscaping project essentially every spring before the summer season really hits, and they plant, what, do you know the exact number? I can't remember with the flowers. It's like always these like thousands and thousands of these like beautiful little red carnations or are they hydrangeas?
They're carnations.
I'm not a flower person, so I have a hard time like distinguishing what they are.
I know all of them one day.
But you know, it's like it's just kind of that like that gorgeous like bright green lawn, and then like your super pretty red flowers like, you know, littered all
everywhere
over downtown. And the resort, they do like, it's like a campaign. They're like, okay, it's flower planting
and the
season.
baskets downtown too.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a big thing. Yeah.
So, you know, they do a good job because that's a huge industry for our summer season is the resort, the recreation on the lake. And so they do like a whole campaign of like making it very aesthetically pleasing and well maintained and groomed. So, you know, anytime you're kind of like strolling around downtown boardwalk wise, it looks nice. It's like you're stepped into a postcard.
Yes.
And that's not by accident. It's very calculated and it's very on purpose.
Yes.
And there's a lot of work that goes kind of behind the scenes for people to come here and be like, wow, this is just like,
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so clean here. Well, it takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of work.
A lot of planning.
Yeah, they have a
scenes,
whole
for sure.
maintenance team, right? That just like,
throughout
you'll see them throughout the day, throughout the year,
too.
like clipping the leaves and even in the winter with the lights and the light stringing. It's a whole month-long process to get all that stuff set up to look nice for people.
Oh yeah. And I do think the resort, because it's so picturesque and they are so adamant about their presentation, everything around it benefits from that too. And it's like, okay, well, we don't want the park to look like crap or downtown to be all run down.
Yeah,
So I think that has a lot of influence. But definitely really clean, very picturesque. Some of the other things that we brought up too was in our resort town, because it used to be so blue collar here with like logging and mining, and it's a long history. I think one thing that's come about, especially in the last 30 years, is just because of the growth and because of the popularity and all the lists Coeur d'Alene keeps popping up on, we see a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
Like new roads, new buildings, new parks, new schools, new developments for neighborhoods, for housing, new commercial spaces to, house all of the, the new businesses, and even some of the stuff that's national that's coming in here as well. They've all got to go somewhere, and those buildings didn't quite exist. So a lot of stuff around here is new, and we hear that a lot. Like, oh my gosh, all these buildings are like, built in 2000 or newer. So everything just feels newer and more modern here, and that's really been driven by our hospitality and recreation industries here in town. Another thing that we brought up here, some of our, I think, personal favorites, the reasons we love this resort town, is, the beaches, Tubbs Hill, the boating, essentially anything happening around the lake.
The water.
The water is like the crown jewel of our community, and people, come here for that. And as a local, to be able to, get out on the beach or find a little cove at Tubbs Hill or go jump off the rocks, or have Tubbs Hill right out your door, in the morning for a hike or in the afternoon for, to blow off some steam. That's always just a really awesome thing here in our community that we love. So if you live here, you're going to love Tubbs Hill and the lake too. Or you better, or we're going to have words.
Or you found the wrong town.
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
That's what you do here.
That's what you do here, exactly. And just to kind of play off more on that recreation thing, I think that we see a lot of people attracted to our community because of lifestyle. Like recreation, activity, being outside, enjoying nature, Centennial Trail, miles and miles.
Walkable, bikeable, recreation trail essentially, and all the way out to Post Falls.
Spokane.
Right? Or so Spokane.
Yeah. It runs from Higgins Point to Spokane.
Yeah.
And I mean, that must be some 30
at least
plus miles of paved
maintained road.
Yeah, exactly.
separate, so it's like off the
yeah, it's not in a busy,
it's like safer.
Controlled for pedestrians.
Yeah, so I think the people that kind of are attracted to this kind of a resort town, because obviously there's other like beaches and whatever, live more of like an active lifestyle, and there's definitely something to find almost every season outside.
And I don't want to forget, like, outdoor activity. We talk a lot about, like, sports, water sports and winter sports, but hunting, huge up here.
Fishing.
Obviously, fishing,
the Coeur d'Alene River is, 20 to 45 minutes, depending on how far up you want to go. But yeah, my dad's, like, a huge fly fisherman, and he'll go up all day, and you can walk the river, and, hunting, fishing.
Our proximity to all of this in this little mountain town is just amazing. So, but another thing I think that we could probably put into like the pros category, or things that we appreciate, is that there's always some sort of activity. There's lots of people coming and going, obviously, and I think that because tourism and hospitality and recreation drives so much of the economy around here, we've got, the Downtown Coeur d'Alene Association. I feel like you've got Parks and Rec. The resort in and of itself has so many activities, but they're constantly trying to come up with something available for, the tourists to do. To draw people in and to create economic impact for our community. But that's also beneficial for us.
Right,
because
it's like
there's
when
always
you get
something
here,
to do.
it's like, and then also when you get here, it's like, well, now what do we do here? And it's like, well, there's this event going on this weekend, and Coeur d'Alene is the weekend before, or 2 weekends before 4th of July, and then they do the fireworks, and there's always something going on, typically put on by the city. And I think the resort also does a good job of like working with the city to be like, okay, well, we'll do this maybe in one of our facilities, we'll use our staffing, whatever, but the city kind of like plans it and technically puts it on. But when holiday weekends, you don't want a huge influx of people, and then like, well,
nothing to
now
do.
What do we do, right? Because it's like, you need those set events to kind of draw people in, and it is nice as a local to be like, okay, are you going to the lighting ceremony the Friday after Thanksgiving? They do the big lighting of all the trees and everything downtown, and getting up for Christmas season. It's just like there's always kind of something going on seasonally, and then in the summer especially a lot of things
of activity in the summer.
We do a concert series every Wednesday evening in our main park, Live After 5, with like a big street fair, kind of like farmers market style. But that is grown. I can't believe how big Live After 5 has gotten.
It's huge.
I mean, I remember when they first started it, and it was like
just
in a different park, I feel like, too.
It was on that. There's a green space right behind Parkside.
Yes,
on Sherman.
by Pita Pit. Yes,
across from Crafted.
Yeah.
That's where they were,
on the
Crafted.
7th Street one. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
And then they moved into the park, and now they take up the entire
this huge park, and there's vendors and food and like keg, like
bouncy
beers
houses,
and
playground for the kids.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like kid stuff. Yeah. So it's actually pretty cool to see how that's grown, and like bigger musical artists are starting to come play at those. So yeah, always just, especially in the summer, there's typically always something to do.
Yes. Yeah. Something to do, some music to listen to, some event to go to or participate in. So these are all kind of, I think, the things as locals that we love about our mountain resort town, and that we see that we get to experience here year round. So now let's go into some of the unfavorable things, I guess you could say, about living in a resort town. And we were kind of laughing as we were making this list, because we're like, well, there's this and this and this and this, and we're like, okay, we need to slow down on the negatives and highlight more of the positives. But then, this is truthful. This is honestly our, Sammy's lived here for how many years?
26. Yeah, I've lived here, 26 years.
And I've been here 15 years. And so there's a lot of really amazing things, but when you live here 24/7 all year round, there are some things that can be frustrating.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, the very number one thing that we wrote down, and I think any resort town you go to will say the same thing, is traffic.
Yeah.
Mainly in the on season, so like between May and September, Memorial Day and
Labor Day is kind of like our season.
Yeah.
And I know I feel like every single time we bring up traffic, people are like, you have no idea what traffic is. And absolutely, you're right. Like, we don't live in LA for a reason, right? I don't want to sit in traffic for an hour to get to my job. I don't want to. That's why I don't live there.
Exactly.
So when we talk about traffic, you know, again, growing up here since, the 90s, seeing the growth that we've experienced, well, absolutely, it's great for our economy and awesome. We love that people want to live here. Cool. But like, I don't want to drive. I don't want to take 35 minutes to get from Hayden to downtown. It's like,
it can be kind of painful
when you're
when you know it's that
when you're
close.
Conditioned also to be like, oh, it takes me 10 minutes to get across town. It doesn't anymore. Like, I have to actively now remind myself to be like, no, you have an appointment at this time. You need to give yourself 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, because now to find parking, especially if you're going downtown, it's just very different. And absolutely, yes, we do not have traffic near anything like a big city.
Yeah.
But for what our town is, size-wise, infrastructure-wise, our roads are just not quite up to handling that.
The influx of activity.
So we call it traffic.
Yes. Now, one thing I would like to point out, and Steve Griffiths was the old mayor of Hayden, and at a chamber presentation, he had a bunch of stats that, you know, the government gets access to. We essentially have in our community about 1 million visitors per summer.
Yeah.
So imagine a community of 165,000 people in any given time. Now, all of a sudden in the summer between May and September, we're seeing essentially an influx of 1 million people coming through in that time and period. So the roads are stuffed. I mean, restaurants, bars, our local haunts that we like to go to and patronize. It's like hard to get in, hard to get a meal in a reasonable amount of time. You know, you're waiting, and I mean it's everywhere, you know. It's not just at restaurants and bars, it's at the grocery store.
I know, we were just joking about Costco.
Yeah,
I was like, for one, going to Costco gives me so much anxiety, even like, don't make me go. But we were just talking, we were like, when is a good time to go to Costco? And the answer is no time. There's no good time to be in Costco. And it's like, and I also feel like Costco is just kind of like a alternate universe where people just forget how to like be in a society.
Yes.
They're like, carts are all over the place. But it's like so many people, and any grocery store even really too. And unfortunately, with like the labor shortage that we're seeing in like a lot of industries, your mom and pop grocery stores that might only have like 6 checkout lanes will only have 1 or 2 open. So not only are the stores kind of super packed and busy, but then it takes you 30 minutes to even just check out because there's not physically people to do that for you.
Yes. So traffic influx, the busyness of just things around town is tough when you live here full time and you're like used to getting into your favorite restaurant or used to walking in and out of the bank really quickly. It's
like, oh, I have 15 extra minutes, I'm gonna stop by the bank. Well, no, you can't do that anymore. You have to plan it out. It's an errand now that you have to plan.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Some other things that we thought about too, obviously, and this has been a hot topic, is housing affordability. When you're in a mountain town, a resort town like this, during COVID, obviously, everyone wanted to escape here. Idaho was very, very open and unrestricted, and so it brought in so many people. And for us, that drives up housing prices, rent prices. I mean, all sorts of expenses around town. The higher the demand and the shorter the supply, obviously, that's when costs go up. So, and you see this in lots of other communities, and they've actually probably been hit a little bit harder. And I'm really hoping Coeur d'Alene doesn't get to that point. But like, you look at Vail, you've got experience in Vail. We've got Tahoe or Jackson Hole. And a lot of those communities, because they're these resort towns that drive so much temporary activity, a lot of people are just slipping through the cracks in terms of housing affordability. And that is, I think, one of the big dark downsides to becoming a very popular resort town.
And we do have a little bit of I don't know if I should call it an advantage with the size of our town, essentially, because I do have experience. I lived and worked in Vail for 5 years, winters, And, we've kind of talked.
Is it smaller?
It's tiny. So that's the thing. The valley is not big at all.
Yeah.
Beaver Creek, the mountain that I worked at, was 6 miles west of Vail. And then out and Avon was the town that we lived in, where Beaver Creek is. Super teeny tiny town, one grocery store. Vail, kind of same thing. Vail, people think of Vail, but it's just the village, right?
Yeah.
And then West Vail, East Vail, cool. But kind of same thing, one grocery store, and then the Costco's out in Gypsum, which is like 35 minutes west as well. But there's not like Hayden, Post Falls, Rathdrum, Athol. Like we have, and it's bigger here, right? So I think that this is obviously possible for Coeur d'Alene to see that kind of price out for locals with affordability, like we see in Tahoe, like we see in Jackson Hole and Vail. We do have a little bit of, I guess, like a slowing of that process with the size of Coeur d'Alene, at least, because you are priced out so quickly because there's nowhere to go over there, right? There's nowhere really to, okay, well, there's no apartments here, but there's also not another town for 35 minutes. And like, yes, you can do that commute. It's not ideal. It's not, that's not like why you go and live in a resort town to drive. That'd be like, okay, I'm going to live and work in Coeur d'Alene, but I'm going to live in the valley. And like do that commute every single day into Spokane Valley because, 25, 35 minutes. So I'm really hoping that we can kind of like get a handle on our housing situation before that happens, because we do have a little bit of wiggle room, in my opinion. Size-wise, we're not
or Sun Valley
tapped out quite yet. And I do think that our community has, like, you're involved in trying to figure out some affording housing solutions, I guess. So I'm really hoping that those kind of come to fruition before it's absolutely necessary, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We don't want to get to Sun Valley, but we've got a lot of things working against us. We've just all got to be kind of a little bit smarter about how we tackle this growth.
Right.
So, and that's, again, the mountain town. I mean, these are the real unfiltered opinions. It's beautiful here, and we love it here, and we want people to come visit, but there's also, we have our own set of struggles. So to kind of piggyback on, the growth stuff, there's only so many industries that exist here in our community. And I think this kind of our last point about some of the downsides of living in these resort towns is that you may not find your job here. You might be in engineering or construction, especially large construction projects. You might be in tech or aerospace, and you're not going to necessarily find those industries here. It's very hospitality heavy, recreation, tourism heavy. And with that comes a lot of transient, and not in a homeless way, but a lot of like nomadic people who are here for a season and then gone for a season. They might come back for a season and gone for a season, because there are only certain types of jobs here. But also we talked about with like kids, if you're raising a family here and your daughter or son graduates Coeur d'Alene High School, they're probably going to go somewhere else for school. And if you do go away for school, you're probably going to also go somewhere else to find employment to fit that degree or that life you want. And sometimes that doesn't exist here. So we see a lot of kids moving away to find employment, especially young people moving away to find employment and to find careers in certain fields that don't exist here because it is so hospitality heavy. And I mean, you were kind of similar scenario too, where you were here in the summertime finding that recreation hospitality work in the wintertime, because we do have those shoulder seasons. And we do ski and we do have winter activities here, but it's not the main driver.
No. Well, and especially Coeur d'Alene, with like, people don't move, they don't move to Coeur d'Alene because of like the world-class skiing, right? It's a perk that we have, but it's like, it's not Tahoe, it's not Sun Valley, or like Park City, you know what I mean? We are very lucky that we have 5 mountains, I think, within an hour drive, but it's not like why people move here. So like Schweitzer, for instance, it's like, our favorite mountain to ski. But it's, an hour and a half drive essentially to Sandpoint and then up the mountain. So your, Schweitzer Mountain Resort is not a leading industry for work here, right? Like a Vail or a Park City or a Tahoe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a perk, but it's not a driving force, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. So we've broken down kind of our pros and cons of living in a mountain resort town. I think, it's very clear that the recreational opportunities, the scenery, the activities, all of that, and the summer season, all of that is attractive enough for us to want to be here year round. But then come shoulder season, or even some of the consequences of our explosion of activity in our summer season, can get kind of frustrating, just as a local. We're happy to have the tourists and we're happy to have the influx, but sometimes it impedes on what we can and can't get done, and how quickly we can get things done, and where we can go and what we can do. So we kind of modify ourselves a little bit in the up season, more so than we do in the shoulder seasons. But we love living here. Obviously, we're here and we've stayed here, but we want to give you guys kind of a real view of what it's like living in a resort town, because a lot of times you only get the sugar-coated, list of pros and cons, and but there's a reality to living here. So we hope you enjoyed this content. We'll be back next week with another hot topic on the market, and we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Bye.
tourism heavy, and with that comes a lot of transient, and not in a homeless way, but a lot of like nomadic people who are here for a season and then gone for a season. They might come back for a season and gone for a season, because there are only certain types of jobs here. But also we talked about with like kids, if you're raising a family here and your daughter or son graduates Coeur d'Alene High School, they're probably going to go somewhere else for school.
Right.
And you know, if you do go away for school, you're probably going to also go somewhere else to find employment to fit that degree or that life you want. And sometimes that doesn't exist here. So we see a lot of kids moving away to find employment, especially young people moving away to find employment and to find careers in certain fields that don't exist here, because it is so hospitality heavy. And I mean, you were kind of a similar scenario too, where you were here in the summertime finding that recreation hospitality work in the wintertime, because we do have those shoulder seasons.
Right.
And we do ski and we do have winter activities here, but it's not the main driver.
No. Well, and especially Coeur d'Alene, with like, people don't move, I mean, they don't move to Coeur d'Alene because of like the world-class skiing, right?
Yes.
It's a perk that we have, but it's like, it's not Tahoe, it's not Sun Valley, or excuse me, like Park City. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We are very lucky that we have 5 mountains, I think, within an hour drive, but it's not like why people move here. So like Schweitzer, for instance, it's like, you know, our favorite mountain to ski, but it's, you know, an hour and a half drive essentially to Sandpoint and then up the mountain. So Schweitzer Mountain Resort is not a leading industry for work here, right? Like a Vail or a Park City or a Tahoe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a perk, but it's not a driving force, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. So just kind of a quick rundown of our kind of unfiltered view of living in a resort town. Super scenic, great lifestyle, quality of life, active lifestyles, work, I'm going to start over here. So we've broken down kind of our pros and cons of living in a mountain resort town. I think, you know, it's very clear that the recreational opportunities, the scenery, the activities, all of that, and you know, the summer season, all of that is attractive enough for us to want to be here year round. But then come shoulder season, or even some of the consequences of our explosion of activity in our summer season, can get kind of frustrating, you know, just as a local. You know, it's we're happy to have the tourists and we're happy to have the influx, but sometimes it impedes on what we can and can't get done, and how quickly we can get things done, and where we can go and what we can do. So, you know, we kind of modify ourselves a little bit in the up season, more so than we do in the shoulder seasons. But we love living here. Obviously, we're here and we've stayed here, but we want to give you guys kind of a real view of what it's like living in a resort town, because a lot of times you only get the sugar-coated, you know, list of pros and cons, and but there's a reality to living here. So we hope you enjoyed this content. We'll be back next week with another hot topic on the market, and we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Bye.